Welcome to episode 32 of Miami Masterclass. I'm Ian, and in today's episode we're going to try and recover from the disappointment of the 2018 season, where we finished with a record of just 80 and 82. We were expected to get a winning record, and I personally thought we were going to make the playoffs, but we didn't. So we had a really poor year, all things considered, and I was pretty much lucky to keep my job because the owner, Jeffrey Loria, wasn't too happy. Wasn't happy about the team record. Very disappointed that we didn't upgrade third base. So we did initially with Pong-Soo Kim, but we traded him away. So we kept Martin Prado, so we didn't improve at all there. We wanted an improvement in the bullpen ERA. We did improve ever so slightly, but not enough to please Jeffrey Loria. He still wants a Cy Young Award winner. We did have a slight increase in attendance, which kept him happy, kept him off my back, but he still wasn't particularly thrilled with that. Last year he gave us the task of building a winner. He's not too disappointed, but he does want us to get an eventual championship in 2020, which is not too far away. We've only got 2 years to do it. So for the next season, he just wants a winning record. He wants the improvement in the runs against column, which I'm certainly for that one. Increased team attendance, that's something that's, I don't have a great deal of control over, all things considered. And otherwise, he still has given us 2 years to bring a championship. Our budget is $110 million, which isn't fantastic. And we have $7.5 million for the first year player draft. A team payroll of $90 million, which is pretty poor. We also lost this guy as well, Nori Yamaguchi, our scouting director. He's retired, so we have to find another scouting director. But we did get some good news because our contract has been extended for another year, $850,000. So that keeps me going. But in terms of the salary arbitration, this is what we had. We gave Jose Fernandez a qualifying offer of $15 million. I kind of knew he wasn't going to take it. I mean, he wants something like $35 million a year. We couldn't afford that at that time, so we certainly gave him a qualifying offer. Otherwise, we did lose Ivan Nova later on in the off season. But as you can see, I won't go through them all. We gave qualifying offers to basically everyone. Andy Oliver, Joe Ortiz, and Tanner Scheppers. They all got nothing, basically. Yeah, Tanner Scheppers was a toss-up. He put up decent numbers last year, but he did get injured, and so I figured it's time to let him go. Joe Ortiz has been a major disappointment since he came in from the Diamondbacks. Andy Oliver didn't do terribly badly, but I think we can get better in the free agency. So this was the first signing we made. Our new scouting director, Nabuisa Sato. I don't even know how you pronounce that, but we'll go with that. This guy's got outstanding ability at scouting the major leagues, which is something that I'm quite pleased to have acquired, because as you probably know from if you've been watching this from the beginning, I tend to sign sort of established players in the major leagues, at least guys that have had experience playing in the majors. I don't like to go for prospects because it's a coin toss sometimes as to whether they make it or not. So this guy should suit what I'm looking for now, because I'm looking for major league talent. So for that reason, I'm quite pleased that we've got him. We also lost Gary Jones. His contract came up at the end of the year. Our manager, I decided not to renew it. He was on something like $2.2 million a year, so we got this guy, Jose Pena, $1.5 million. We got him for 5 years. As you can see, he's quite down the middle. He's sort of average for everything in terms of his game strategy. So I might tinker a little bit in terms of stealing. I might lower stealing a fraction. Hit and run, I might lower that a bit as well. But other than that, he's a manager. He doesn't have a great say in the team, really, does it? I mean, that's the thing with baseball. Yes, managers have an impact, but it all depends on the players they have. He's never actually managed in the majors before, so this could be a complete disaster. In terms of the awards, Jose Fernandez came the closest out of all of us to pick up an award in terms of the Cy Young, but he came second behind the one and only Clayton Kershaw, so he was the only one that got anything. Players like Mazzara and that, they all missed out. So again, a rather forgettable 2018, wasn't it, for the Miami Marlins? In terms of the arbitration decisions, I'll zoom through these. Ketel Marte received $1.1 million. Naquin got $3 million. He demanded 3.7. We offered 3, and as you see up the top when I get to it, Abraham Almonte also got $3 million. So I decided that one of them had to go, and I was leaning towards Naquin. Mazzara got $7.5 million. We only offered 7.2, so that's a fair deal. Raul Muto got just over $9 million. That's a complete rip-off. He is good, but he's not worth $9 million. So we might look at getting rid of him during the season if we start off poorly. Kyle Schwarber got 5.5. He demanded 6.8, but they ruled in our favour. CJ Cron got $4 million. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, excellent, that's a bargain. But the season that just was, he didn't do anything, did he? And he demanded 5.5, so they did rule in our favour. Yimi Garcia got $2 million. Joe Panic got 4.6. He demanded 5.5, so we got a bit of a steal there. Pedro Baez got just over $1 million. Brandon Finnegan, one of our starting pitchers, he got 5.5. And Profile got 9.7 million. That's a lot of money, and I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. We'd offered 8.5 million, and even that was perhaps a fraction too high. But yeah, I mean, look, he's a very good shortstop, and he certainly turned our season around from what was going to be even worse than it turned out to be. As you can see here, Jose Fernandez declined the qualifying offer, so he became a free agent, which means we do most likely get a draft pick. I believe he signed for San Francisco in the end, so losing him was a major blow. And there's confirmation there of Abraham Almonte. He got $3 million as well. This trade annoyed the buggery out of me, to be honest, because Madison Bumgarner, he had a team option for $12 million for this season, which I optioned, and I said, yep, happy days. $12 million was a lot of money, but I figured, he's a solid starter. And then I thought, you know what, I could probably trade him away. If $12 million is a lot of money, I don't know if we could afford that. So Boston Red Sox came knocking, and they said they'd give us Garin Cicchini, who you may remember, I may have edited it out. I did actually look at trading for him, a third baseman, and they gave us $4 million in cash. The reason this annoys the hell out of me is because take a good look at this guy, because you're never going to see him in a Marlins jersey this season. Because I stuffed up. I've actually left him, I hadn't actually assigned him into the active roster, so he was waiting for an assignment. And the Rule 5 draft came along, and he got picked up by the Cardinals, and I wasn't paying any attention at all. I was looking elsewhere. So we basically gave the Red Sox Madison Bumgarner for nothing, basically. $4 million, which is a complete steal. So yeah, have a look at him. He's fantastic, isn't he? But he's not going to be playing for us in 2019. So yeah, I mean, chalk that one up. That was my fault. We then started looking around, and we thought, you know what, the loss of Jose Fernandez, we're going to have to bring in some starting pitchers. So we did a pretty good trade with the Minnesota Twins. We gave up Ketel Marte, who was languishing a little bit, hadn't played many games for us. We gave him up, and 30-year-old Justin Bohr, and a minor leaguer, Seth Beer, the right fielder. You may have seen him around the traps in the previous episodes. And we picked up a 28-year-old right-hander called Taylor Jungmann. I don't know how you say that. I'm going to go with Jungmann because it sounds cool, sounds exotic. And this is what he is. He's not too bad. He's only on 4.2. He's got auto-renew. I can't remember exactly his salary. I think it bumps up a little bit. Actually, no, it's auto-renew, isn't it? I'm not sure now. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. I'm totally out of it today, so I do apologise. But yeah, look, this guy's very good. He's obviously no Jose Fernandez, but he's certainly... I'm looking at him as replacing, say, Ivan Nova. Yeah, that's who I'm sort of seeing, and he's certainly a step up from Ivan Nova. Last year in 2018, when he did go to Minnesota, his ERA bumped up ever so slightly, but when he was with Seattle and Milwaukee, he was putting up decent numbers, so I'm hoping that if he can get around that, 3.5, 4 ERA, we've got a good deal there. We then made another trade in the exact same day, basically. We traded away a minor leaguer, Louis Munoz, the first baseman. Again, he was predicted to do really well a couple of years ago. He was a 5-star prospect, and slowly but surely he just sort of drifted away. And we also gave Ben Holmes to the Tigers, a complete nobody. And we picked up Nick Castellanos from the Detroit Tigers. Now, here's a shot of Munoz, just so you can see. I say he was a 5-star prospect. He's still got a bit of potential there, like his contact, once that climbs up a little bit, his discipline in particular, he could be a solid first baseman. He's not going to be a superstar, and he's only 23, so it's worth the gamble. But this guy, this is the signing that I didn't really want to make because Cecchini was our third baseman before, and we ended up losing him, so we had to make another signing. So we picked up Castellanos. This guy's been putting up fantastic numbers. The last 2 years for Detroit, look at that, very, very similar numbers, very similar batting average. His ops is very similar as well. So he's a solid replacement to Martin Prado. Not that Martin Prado was poor, but I actually consider them very similar. But Castellanos is slightly better in terms of contact, I think, and maybe discipline as well. I think Prado's discipline was fractionally lower. But this guy looks like a decent signing for a third baseman. And he's signed through to 2022. His salary bumps up to around 7-8 million, I think, over the next couple of years. As long as he doesn't tank anytime soon, we've got him for a good few years, tied down long term. I couldn't just help myself, could I? Because we're still on Thursday, December the 13th, and I've just made another trade, this time with Oakland. We picked up a couple of solid players here. We gave away Yarlin Garcia and a minor leaguer, Matt Kroon. Yarlin Garcia really struggled last year. Perhaps I was a bit brash getting rid of him. He could have perhaps gone down to AAA, but he was really struggling. We want to go into this win-now mentality. Minor leaguer Matt Kroon, he was another one that was sort of been anticipated to be really, really good and never really eventuated. So we picked up a couple of solid players and $1 million in cash. We picked up a reliever, RJ Alvarez, as well as a shortstop, Michael Chavis, to go with that. So there's Yarlin Garcia. As I said, his numbers last year weren't fantastic. He only made 24 starts in the big club, and he went 608. Down in AAA, he was doing very, very well, but I figured that look at his ratings. His ratings aren't fantastic, really, are they? So I kind of expected a little bit more from him. I'd be interested to see actually where Oakland use him, whether he's just going to go down into their minor system or not. But this is RJ Alvarez, who's been putting fantastic numbers up here and there. Last year he went 205, and a couple of years before that his ERA was blown out over 5. But last year he put up solid numbers. So we picked him up in a trade. We had to look for relievers because we were getting rid of a lot of them. There was a lot of players like Whitgren, for instance, who wasn't good enough. Bringing in someone like this will certainly shore up our bullpen rather. So he's a decent signing on very low money as well, 1.4 million. He's a risk, but I think it's a good gamble. And this is the other guy, Michael Chavis. He's very young. He's only 23. He barely played for Oakland. He obviously came up in the roster expansion. He was playing AA last year for most of it. I don't think there's much improvement in him, to be honest. But he's not going to be starting in our big team. He's going to be starting down in AAA, maybe even AA. So I think for that trade, I'm quite happy with that. Oakland weren't going to give up anyone else because they don't have a fantastic team. So that's why I started looking at prospects. And Michael Chavis is good because I'm looking at getting rid of that Marco Hernandez. So Chavis is certainly better than him. So even if he only makes a few spot starts in the Marlins team, it's still an improvement over Marco Hernandez, who was the backup. So after Christmas, we made another trade, but we didn't really trade anyone. We gave away Tyler Naquin to Seattle for $10 million in cash. Nothing else. We just picked up the cash because I had something brewing that I wanted to start looking at. And Seattle came knocking, and I just kept bumping up the price. And in the end, I took every single penny they owned in cash. So we picked up $10 million for Tyler Naquin. I'm happy with that because not that Tyler Naquin is a bad player, but I feel Almonte was better than Naquin. And having two players sitting there basically playing in the same position is pointless. And because of what I have brewing, I figured Almonte was the better option because he can play in left field and right field as well as centre, whereas Naquin can only play centre field, and I think he's got a rating of 1 in left field. So I figured, let's get rid of him, and we'll take the cash. We did make a free agent signing, Justin DeFratis. yeah, look, another solid player. We picked him up from Detroit, who released him. He had a bit of a blip last year. He went 356, and the 2 years before that with Detroit and LA, he put up solid numbers. And then in 2016, he was 399. So he's a bit hit and miss. As long as he can keep around under 4, he's going to be a good signing. He's a free agent at the end of the year. We only signed him on $1.5 million, so I'm quite happy with him. This is confirmation that we did lose Jose Fernandez to the San Francisco Giants. Originally, with that extra $10 million cash that I picked up from the Naquin trade, I did actually look to see if we could sign him, but he wanted crazy money and we just couldn't afford it. I was trying to backload the contract, all sorts of things, and he wasn't having any of it. And eventually, he broke off negotiations and he ended up signing with San Francisco. I don't have a screenshot of him, but I believe the contract was whopping. It was something like $40 million or something like that a year for about 4 or 5 years. When we were negotiating with him, he wanted a 9-year contract. That's crazy. That would have tied us up for a long time. And in real life, obviously, he got severely injured, so you wouldn't want that happening to us, particularly the luck that we're having. I'm sure that would have happened. We then managed to get rid of Marco Hernandez. I thought I'd shop him around, and Atlanta came asking, and I managed to bump them up to $10 million as well. What they see in him, I have absolutely no idea. But if this isn't steal of the century, then I don't know what is, because I think he's woeful, and I'm surprised. I'm very interested when the season starts to see if we can even see him play. I imagine he's going to spend most of his time down in AAA. But that money freed us up even more, and we managed to get a real coup of a signing later on, which I'll mention in a bit. Those that are interested, Roger Clemens was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the only one this time around. But this is the signing that I wanted to talk about. Andrew McCutchen. He was a free agent, of course, and we picked him up for very, 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 very lots of money. That doesn't even make sense, does it? We picked him up, and we had to pay through the nose. He's on $27 million this year, and that bumps up to $35 million, I think, the next year, and $40 million the year after that. All sorts of things, basically. It wasn't an impulse buy, perhaps a little bit. I think he's got a couple of team options there, so if he tanks, then we haven't lost anything. But look at those numbers he's been putting up for Pittsburgh since 2015. He's been putting in solid numbers. I mean, 2017 there, he went 282. That was probably his worst year since 2011. If he puts up numbers of 282, we're cheering. So that means Almonte is now going to be our backup, basically. Andrew McCutchen's got centre field sewn up for sure, doesn't he? So Almonte will just be the backup. It does mean Casey Soltis is left hanging. I did try to look at trading him away, but I couldn't seem to find anyone that wanted to grab him. But I will mention that Kyle Schwarber does seem to be playing in that catcher role a little bit more now. So that's going to be quite interesting. During spring training, we did lose Abraham Almonte. I took a screenshot for no real reason other than to mention that he got injured. He was out for 3 weeks. He had a strained hamstring. It's going to be a little bit of a blow, but as you look at the two, actually, McCutchen and Almonte, look at their ratings. Almonte pales in comparison, and Almonte was a very, very good player for us last year. So hopefully we've improved that position, which does mean that our pitching is still an issue. It doesn't mean our bats are fantastic, but our pitching is going to be a real drama. At the completion of spring training, we went 14-12, which is the first time we had a winning spring training for a good few years, I think. Not that it matters too much, does it? Batting leaders, Castellanos was appearing quite a lot. He was ranked 17th in batting average, and he got quite a few hits, doubles, that sort of thing. Raul Muto had 2 triples. Really, the whole team sort of appears. Mazzaro got total bases as well, but Castellanos is the one that's making the big impression, and Chavez as well has picked up a few hits here and there. So that looks quite promising in that regard. Our pitching is very, very poor. We've got Aaron Blair there, and hits per 9 innings is 5. If he can keep that up, fantastic. Youngman gave up 12 walks. That's a worry. Otherwise, Blair is appearing in all the wrong things. except for walks and hits per 9 innings, which per an inning pitched, I should say. So, we haven't got anyone. Adam Conley as well. He played 5 games through 20 innings, and he's nowhere else on the board. So that's a concern, because he's going to be our starting pitcher on opening day. So pitching is a real issue. Here's our spring training stats. Now, you may see a name there that I haven't mentioned, Damien Magnifico. And I haven't mentioned him because I picked him up in the Rule 5 draft. I couldn't even tell you who I picked him up from, thinking, see what he's like. If he's awful, send him back, and I won't bother mentioning it in the video. And here we are on opening day, and he's in our rotation. That's a worry. He's not terrible, but he reminds me a lot of Aaron Blair. He hasn't actually played in the majors before. I expect him to be batted all over the park for the first couple of months, so I'm not expecting us to be leading the division. If we do, then wow, that's going to be amazing stuff. But otherwise, everyone's been putting up fairly good numbers. Blair, Conley, Finnegan, Youngman, the other guys that are in the rotation, they've all been putting up very good ERA numbers. ERA plus has all been well over 100. Damien Magnifico, though, ERA of 5, and his ERA plus down at 79. A little concerning. Ks to walks, as you can see. Aaron Blair got 5.7. Everyone else is struggling a little bit. RJ Alvarez, one of the signings that we made in the trade, he had an ERA of 6. That's concerning as well. Otherwise, everyone was pretty similar. A lot of these players, they're obviously not going to play in the big club. Dan Slania, he had an ERA of 9, and he got thumped all over the park. That's concerning. He did very well towards the end of last season. I want him to continue that. I don't think he will. And Addison Reed, our closer, he didn't give up anything in his 6 innings pitched from his 6 appearances. In terms of the batting, this was a bit of a mixed bag. Andrew McCutcheon, he made 26 starts from 26 games and had an average of 197. That's not great, is it? He was the worst performer out of the lot, and if that's... I hope that's just because it's spring training. If he's going to carry on like that at the start of the season, what with Magnifico on the mound, this could be a very, very poor month for us. Otherwise, Castellanos, as I mentioned, he did very well. So did Chavez. CJ Cron, 241. That's basically how he finished last year. So, he hasn't really improved too much. Nomar Mazara, though, 310, along with Joe Panic. Both of them putting up very, very good numbers. Profar, 235. I'm not too concerned about that. It's certainly better than McCutcheon, but that's something that I might need to look at. Kyle Schwarber, 281. And JT Realmuto, who is ever so slightly highlighted there, I think. He did 211, which isn't fantastic either. So there's players as well that do deserve a mention. Behind Realmuto is Casey Soltis and AJ Reed there. AJ Reed made a few starts at first base in place of CJ Cron. And Soltis and Reed, they put up fairly good numbers, so they might be worth keeping around. Other than that, there's just a few players coming up from the minor leagues giving a few hits. So this is going to be our team then heading into the 2019 season. Adam Conley, I should say, not Aaron Conley. Adam Conley is going to be our opening day pitcher. Taylor Youngman, then Brandon Finnegan. Damien Magnifico actually gets the nod ahead of Aaron Blair in the starting rotation. That says it all. Aaron Blair was very, very poor, and he's below Magnifico, who isn't much better, so that's going to be a disaster. In the bullpen, Addison Reed, of course, our closer. RJ Alvarez and Yumi Garcia in the setup roles. DeFratis, Baez, Slania, and Matt Ramsey actually makes the squad to be the middle relievers. This is our biggest weakness right here, this screen. All these players. Adam Conley, Brandon Finnegan, and Taylor Youngman, they're solid starters, but we need more. So I'm definitely going to have to look at the waiver wire to improve this team. I might even start looking at trades as well, because players like Chavez, for instance, he didn't even make the lineup. He didn't make the active roster. He's got real potential, real ability, so we might be able to squeeze him off and perhaps bring in a starting pitcher. What we need is someone like Madison Bumgarner, really. I've actually taken the wrong screenshot here. Normally I do the lineups overview so you can see versus righties versus lefties and versus the rights and lefts in the DHs, but I didn't do that. So it does look like Profile's going to be leading off. He's going to be our shortstop. Joe Panic, surprise, at second base. Andrew McCutcheon in the number 3 spot, centre field, of course. It's got Kyle Schwarber as catcher with Realmuto as his backup. I don't know if that's going to be a forever type thing or if that's just against these righties, but that's going to be quite interesting to see because they've put Kyle Schwarber in as catcher and Casey Saltis is our left fielder. So maybe it'll be worth getting rid of Kyle Schwarber, who knows. But this is against right-handed pitchers, and Casey's a lefty, as is Schwarber, whereas Raul Muto is a righty. So that could just be a left-right split thing. Otherwise, CJ Cron will be starting at first base. AJ Reed is actually in the active roster, so don't be too surprised if you see him popping up. And then we have Castellanos at third base and Mazzara, of course, in right field. Another name that's on there that I've kept in the team, I'm hoping that he's going to be like the opposite of Marco Hernandez. You'll see him there, centre fielder Devin Belaski, and we picked him up in the Rule 5 draft as well. And of course, I didn't take a screenshot of him because I didn't think he was going to be any good, but he sort of held his own. He's going to start off in the active roster. If he's awful, then I'm going to get rid of him and perhaps bring Chavez up, or maybe even someone like Addison Reed or someone. But it's early days, so not Addison Reed. What did I say? Austin Dean. That's what I meant. Addison Reed's the closer, isn't he? Yeah, there you go, Addison Reed. So that's our team. In terms of our lineup, I think it's a very, very strong lineup. Our biggest weaknesses, looking at that, would probably be first base with CJ Cron. Otherwise, I think our outfield and our infield are very, very solid. Our biggest weakness, of course, is the pitching. So that's going to be a real test for us. Pre-season predictions on opening day, we're predicted to go 78 and 84. That's fine by me, because every time that were predicted to win the division, we struggled, and I wondered whether the pressure was getting to the younger players. Even though now we've got sort of older, more mature guys in McCutcheon and Castellanos, who's been around a long time, even though he's still quite young. He's only 26. But one thing that you will notice is games behind. Admittedly, it's only been a simmed season, but Washington and Atlanta are only 6 games. There's only 6 games between them. When you look at the other divisions in the National League, Milwaukee's 23 games behind the Pirates, and the Diamondbacks are 18 games behind the Dodgers. So, we are in a very, very tough division, which is frustrating when you really need to make the playoffs. So, one thing that you will look at, though, is our batting average, our runs is way, way higher than anyone else in our division, but then our runs against is very, very poor. In fact, it's probably one of the worst in the National League. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to look at, and hopefully we can do something in terms of with the waivers as the season progresses to improve that situation. But then, who knows, we could have a fantastic season and not need to make any changes. So until next time, I'll see you for the month of April 2019. Thanks for watching, guys.